All right. So
What?
speaking of adjusting radios, Shally, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Can you test for me one more
Test, test,
time?
Kurt, checking.
Oh, there we go.
Mission control.
I'm not Hunter, but I'm going to try to beatbox like Hunter does.
Excellent. So, Shally, this is Thursday. It's not Friday.
I know. That's what I was saying. I was just saying, hey, welcome to Shally Sally. It's Thursday, not Friday. First Shally Sally ever done on a Thursday, tell you that.
This is great. So, Shally, I've got to wonder, do you have a guest today?
I do, yeah, but I didn't want to spoil the surprise earlier when you asked me. So, my special guest today is the HRTX camp attendees.
Oh, wow.
I'm
How are you
turning
going?
things around.
Okay, all right.
As you know, normally I interview a guest, right? So this time I'm actually going to interview a guest, but it's everybody that's in the chat. So I'm going to have some questions to ask folks to answer in their chat. I wish I could bring them on stage, but from what Brooke tells me, there's quite a bit of onboarding necessary for that. So I changed my mind about that, but we definitely can keep up the chat.
This is great. This is exceptional. All right. So beyond people who think that Shally was yelling into a well, this is an opportunity for you to take the stage at HRTX. I'm looking at David Marr. I'm thinking that he's probably the next person who wants to come up here and have a round table with us and be a guest on Shally's Alley. David Marr, where are you? Where is
He was already
Chi-Town
on
in the
Shally's
house?
Alley recently.
Yeah, he was, but I figured he'd come back, right?
Yeah. I figured so.
Hyperspeed.
Ready to go. I've got some questions for y'all.
All right, fire away because we are ready.
Okay, all right. Like I said, normally I'm interviewing someone and we're just kind of bantering back and forth. So we're gonna have to try to go fly by the seat of our pants. But I've got a couple questions from different areas. My first question is, folks, how many times should we reach out to a passive candidate before we move on? Thrice? 4 times? 5 times? 6 times? 7 times? 8 times? 12 times? Twice? Is once enough? That's what I want to know. How many times should you reach out? And by the way, to clarify, how many times should you reach out without a response? Obviously, if they responded, So if you were to set up a sequence or a campaign, and you wanted to create however many messages, how many should there be? How many is too much? And -1, that's how many we should before we move on. Looks like a lot of 3 to 4s. We got 1, 6, sometimes 9. Okay. Now I'm gonna add to that sometimes 9 until I find someone else that's better. That's exactly right, no doubt. Okay, so the real question here is how many times is too many times? And I'm getting a lot of 3s and 4s. I think 3 and 4 is basically table stakes. 7 is probably at the point where I would say it's getting to where it might actually be too much. And I did see somebody that put 9 in there, but they qualified it. Here's how they qualified it, and I really agree with this. You might have a sequence that starts out with 3 to 4 messages. The first one, and then, I don't know, wait a week, etc. And so by the time you've gone through the 4th one, they haven't responded. It's time to take a little bit of a break. So for the person that said 9, they're not doing that 9 messages in one day, right? They're spacing them out. And what they might be doing is they might be putting someone on a long-term nurturing list. So that's what I was going to suggest is if you have, a cadence of 3 or 4, that's a good starting point. You can add another one a month or 2 months later or 3 months later or 6 months later and, extend that out a little bit. And so that way you can get to that 7 or 9 without being uncomfortable. But I think in a short span, let's just say we're trying to fill a job and we have maybe 2 weeks. I think 3 to 4 is minimum. I would even say 4 is minimum in a short span of 2 weeks. Those are my thoughts.
Hey,
Looks like somebody said 5 and then hold 6.
All right.
Multi-channel 9. Okay, I see what that means. So multi-channel means maybe 4 or 5 emails and then a text. That's number 6, etc. Yep, I like that.
I want to come back to something that Kelly said. On the second time I reach out with a different opportunity, they're not responding. They must not be interested. You don't want to be annoying. shifting the opportunity, renaming it? Is that what we're implying here? Because
No, I think she's saying that the second time she reaches out is for a different job. And of course, that's a separate campaign, right? So I'm talking about 3 to 4 messages, and I think people are responding with the same 3 or 4 messages about the same job, not about another opportunity. But I actually don't think that it's correct to assume that they're not interested on just one message, because I can tell you for sure that we don't really know if they got it. So in other words, if you only sent them one message, there's no way for you to know that they received it. It's possible that your first message to them went to a spam filter, landed in the social updates box, or never got there. And even if you're saying it's in mail, believe me, I want to show you my LinkedIn in-mail box so you can see what I'm talking about. I get so many messages that if you sent me something 2 weeks ago, I can't even see it anymore. It's way down in my unread items. So what I'm saying is one message doesn't mean they're not interested. It may mean they're not interested, but it could also mean they never got it. They could be out on vacation. Imagine if you're out on vacation, Brian, for 2 weeks. Are you really going to go back 2 weeks in your in-mail unread messages? I mean, if you do, it's going to take you a while. So does that mean you're never interested in the opportunity? So I think that you should get something in response. But the question that I want to find out the answer to is, at what point do people think it's like, I don't know, excessive, right? So if I follow up with you 3 times over a span of 2 weeks, maybe you're like, this is a little annoying, but no big deal. If I follow up with you 9 times over a span of 2 weeks, you're probably going to be annoyed. So what's the number where you're not, what's more than 3 but less than 9? That's what I want to get to.
okay, so real quick, with the experiment that I ran with emails, I only reached out 1 time asking for advice, right?
And by the way, I also am adding more information. So the second email is not a repeat of this first email. What I do with the first email, if it's an email, I do forward it as a second email, but I count that as still email number 1. If I'm following up, I'm sending different valuable information. Sorry to interrupt. I don't want people to think I'm sending the same email 9 times. That would just be ridiculous. Sorry. And so you're saying you only reached out once?
Only 1 time.
Okay.
I wanted to keep it the same. I kept it universal. I didn't go RE. Yeah, just 1 time.
Mm-hmm.
1, not 11. 1.
Right. And then you got, that was the 8%?
Well, the 24 was the total percentage of people who responded, but it was 8% was the people that responded to a 3 to a what?
Triple.
Yeah, triple. Word score triple. Ding ding ding.
Right.
Yeah. So that's yeah, that's
so most recently, I just ran a short campaign with 70 prospects, very, very high level, VP level prospects. And with this level, we don't usually, when I say we, my team, we don't usually send more than 3 messages, because it's just kind of at a higher level. We also space them out a little bit more. So over a period of like 14 days, they only received up to 3 messages. The first one, then, about a week later, the second one, then another week and a half, 2 weeks, we sent that third, kind of like, hey, just checking in, here's some additional information. I assume you're not interested, so if you ever change your mind, something like that. And out of those 70 people that we contacted, 84% of them opened the message and 32% of them replied. But that is a cumulative effect of all 3. So first, second, and by the time the third campaign finished. With other positions, we definitely have gone to up to 4, with the 5th and 6th one being either text or social, or maybe even a phone call. So I do like that omni-channel thing. Yep. Just want to make sure that everybody knows that it's got to be good messaging, of course. It's got to be value add, of course. And I'm not just, spamming. I'm targeting people. I was just very curious to see what the tolerance was, because over the years, the tolerance has varied. I was at a seminar once where, I think, Brian, you were there. Somebody said you should contact them 7 times because they borrowed it from sales and marketing or something like that, where like it takes 7 impressions. I've had 7 steps in my campaign, but the last ones were like like a text or a social message or something like that. I've never actually done 7 emails in one campaign.
Yeah, so
Just take out their office.
So that was spam. I love spam. David Marr, I wonder why LinkedIn Recruiter has a spam folder. I'm just saying. I mean, LinkedIn Freemium has a spam folder. I wonder that. Shally, that's really interesting about the about multi-frequency and the borrowing it from sales.
Channel. Yeah.
The omni-channel. Do you find that text messages work better than email?
So number one on my list is still email, although it has a lower percentage of net total response rates than text. It does have a total percentage of people that convert to interviews. So I'm not tracking data just on the response rates. I'm actually looking at the data all the way through the to conversion to interview. And so here's what's really shocking that I showed at SourceCon is that of the three primary methods, InMail, email, and text, email had the highest response rate in volume, and texting had the lowest response rate in volume, but texting had really high interview throughput. So most people who responded via text made it all the way through. Fewer people on email made it all the way through. And the worst one was InMail. 2.9% of positive replies on InMail made it through interview. Lots of those people are just tire kicking and they're accepting appointments with anybody, accepting messages from everybody. And the quality is really low. So even though we got 20% response rate instead of 32% for the email, on LinkedIn InMails, we got 20%. Still, out of that 20%, very few of them actually survived all the way through the interview. So like I said, it's not necessarily the reply rate. We get higher reply rate percentage from texting, but lower volume. And from email, we get lower percentage, if you will. But higher volume net total. However, the volume on LinkedIn doesn't turn into anything. Well, I shouldn't say that. It doesn't turn into much. So, but you know what? Let me follow that up with what is off limits? What type of outreach is off limits? I saw someone say postcards. Okay, so we can call, we can text, we can send postcards, we can send InMails. What would you say is off limits? Would Snapchat be off limits? Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook? What's off limits? Asking the attendees. What would you say you should never contact a candidate through what channel? Through what? Nobody? Nobody's taking this one? Yeah, I like the way you phrased that, Brooke. What type of outreach is off limits? It used to be, Brian, you remember when it used to be texting was like, if you texted somebody, you would get, like threatened to get reported to the authorities or whatever. But it became a lot more, commonplace now. So don't DM me on Instagram. Okay. So somebody's saying Instagram DMs.
I love Instagram DMs. I love Instagram DMs.
Tom's saying Pornhub is off limits, depending on what you're recruiting for. I could see that. What's showing up at yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm going to agree with that one. Which ironically, we actually have the ability to do, right? Since we can find information about where they live. So we got postcards. I would be weirded out if someone contacted. Okay, so David, social media includes LinkedIn. So I'm assuming not LinkedIn, but what you mean by that would be like what, Facebook, Instagram? And that's specifically what I'm trying to find out. Is Facebook okay, but Instagram not okay? Or are both of them not okay? Is Snapchat okay? What about WhatsApp? Is WhatsApp okay? Because technically it's almost like a call in a lot of ways. Anybody else?
Well, what about WhatsApp groups?
Can
you post a message in a WhatsApp group to like if you're part of a developer group or a Bitcoin group? I may have just kind of outed myself saying I'm a member of a Bitcoin group.
That looks like, right, we got to bring back knocking on doors. I'd love to see you try that one. Leaving notes on the, wait a minute. Is leaving notes on their cars off limits, or is that an idea you're suggesting?
That is off limits. That has got to be off limits.
Okay.
That's creepy.
Yeah. What about mentioning them on Twitter publicly?
Man, I did that like years ago, and
what happened?
I got contacted by that person's boss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I made a
Nice.
comment, like I couldn't get them to respond to my outreach on email, so I snapped a screenshot of their code from GitHub and I tagged them in the post and said, "This is awesome. Love what you're building," to this individual, and their boss sent me a DM in response. Let me see if I can find that. That's actually
That's funny.
it's actually one of my favorite DMs. I probably have a copy of that, but
Well,
yeah.
so it looks like I just want to point out that there is a lot of diversity, not just in how many outreach attempts. It seems like some people go as low as saying one is enough, but the majority seems to be okay with 3, with some folks going into 4 or 5, and it starts to get a little bit less from there. But I'm also getting that there's a lot of channels that are not necessarily considered off limits. There's some clear ones, like don't put a sticky note on their car. But I'm even surprised to see the knocking on their door. One person said definitely not. Another person said they would try it. So there's a lot of variety. I think maybe it has something to do with the fact that it's different industries, right? Like I can imagine in some industries, like for example, you were saying before that you use Instagram a lot for nurses. It's just much more common for nurses to be on Instagram, so probably that's why it's more accepted, maybe, right? Whereas if it's an industry or if it's a group of people that are not very frequently on Instagram and they get a message there and it's the only message they've ever gotten, that may stand out a little bit more. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Well, to that point, if you're looking for a UI or UX designer or developer, it may make more sense to go to Behance, where their portfolio is showcased and you can send them a free message there, rather than doing it on LinkedIn, where they're not showcasing their skills or their aptitude.
Right. Yeah, that's good. So there's a little bit of difference there. Okay. All right, I got another one. Here's an interesting one. Everybody on the call today, I want you to think back and tell me about a requisition, a job opening, a position that you worked on in your entire career. Think of what was the longest a job has been open that you worked on. Don't tell me about a job that you heard somebody had, or that was at your company, whatever. I want to know from you which is the longest job you've ever worked on, the longest opening. So like it was open for 100 days, 300 days, whatever, that you actually worked on. I want to see what the record is. I'm curious. I'll start with mine. The longest one that I worked on and filled, by the way, but that's not a requirement for the question, was 380 days. And it was, I believe me, I actively worked in it. Now, I didn't work on it every single day, but it was open and I was sourcing and sending people in, and it took me basically a year. Wow, 2 years. 1.5 years. Okay, can we get more than 2 years? Anybody got more than 2 years? I think we got a record here. No, how long you worked on it, I guess I should say. Because if it was open for 3 years and then you started working on it and you closed it in a month, then yeah, I'm talking about a rec that you worked on. I think the record might be 2 years. 2.5 years. Whoa. Oh my. I got to hear about that one. Fahad, we need to bring you on the show, man. I want to hear about the 2.5 year. So with 420, I can't count great. Is that almost 2 years? Not quite. For what? 4 years? Donna, is that 4 years?
No, 420 days is a year and a half. But Fahad, I do want to hear about this chief scientist
I do too.
that they're
That's
working
crazy. Please, somebody tell me Donna meant 4 months, not 4 years. 4 years, 9 months. Oh my, that's got to be a record. I've never heard of anything taking that long. I'm surprised you held the job that long. Most recruiters are only at the same company for 2 to 3 years. That's impressive, amazing. I hope you still work there. Whew. Some challenging jobs that are open again and again. Oh, okay, that's a good point. So same rec for 7 years, but it's been filled and yeah. So someone rotated in. I gotcha. Okay. Working on the same job for 7 years, but you filled it several times. Okay. Scientists. Yeah, that's true. I once worked on a position for finding the head of the lab. So like the chief technician of the lab, their job wasn't to do any of the experiments. Their job was to manage all the equipment. So they were like the, I don't know, the administrator or ombudsman of the hardware in this very, very large chemistry lab. And man, it was so slow to move, but I can't believe 4.5 years. Wow. Whew. All right. So let me ask you this question. Why are some of these jobs, like chief scientist, disproportionately harder to fill than others, or slower to fill? Maybe slower doesn't mean harder. So maybe it's just a matter of it just moves slower, but it's not harder. But if it's harder, why are some jobs so much harder to fill? What is it about them? Because you're finding people, you're submitting people, you're moving on the position, but what's going on? What is the reason that they're open for that long?
My answer to that is I have one role that I worked on that was open for 14 months, and we had 2 different hiring managers on that role. And I think it was because we had to restart the process and kind of reevaluate things.
Oh, recalibration. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Okay, so basically they changed the rec. It's almost like you might have closed it and opened a new rec almost, right? Okay.
Spot on.
Yeah, that's good. I'm getting a lot of unrealistic expectations. So that again, that may be back to like, let's just close the rec and reopen it. Lack of talent. Okay, I can see lack of talent being the reason that it's hard, but there's talent. So it's like if there is no talent, then you'll never fill it. And there's positions where there's lack of talent and people fill the positions fairly easily. So I'm looking for what distinguishes one role where there's very sparse talent to another role that also has very sparse talent, but one position can be filled in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and the other one takes 4.5 years. Like I'm looking for what is the essence of what makes that a horrible job to fill? It's not a priority for the hiring. Oh, yes. Okay. Has anybody ever encountered a hiring manager they didn't want to hire? Like secretly? They kept telling you that they wanted to see more candidates and their boss was putting pressure on them to fill the job, but really they didn't want to hire. So they were actually their own obstacle. That happened to me once. Anybody else had that experience?
Shally, I want to play devil's advocate here. Why would somebody not want to fill a headcount they had requested?
I will tell you the reason in this case, and this is the only time it's ever happened in my career, filling thousands of positions. And that's why I'm curious to see if this kind of thing has happened to somebody else. But in this particular case, the GM of this division had tapped this individual, a director level person, for promotion into a higher level role operating the entire division, so that the GM could then focus on several divisions, because they were a GM of multiple divisions and they had spending too much time on this one division. So they had tapped this director to get promoted to become a division director or a senior director. So they had to backfill their job. In other words, the rec was for this person's backfill. So he had to hire someone to replace himself so he could be promoted. But he didn't want the promotion, and he didn't want to tell his boss that he didn't want the promotion, because then he would appear like he's not interested or disloyal, and he was afraid he would get fired or whatever. So he basically kept the position open and kept interviewing hundreds of people because he just didn't want to hire, because that meant hiring someone would mean he would be moving on to this other job, which he didn't really want. That was the reason.
Okay.
Oh, they didn't want to onboard someone. Oh my God. We want to hire somebody, but we don't want to teach them anything. Nice. That's a good one. Man, we could write a book with all this. Where's ChatGPT when you need it? Is somebody grabbing all this text so we can make a summary of it? Man, I almost want to do that.
Yeah, put it back into our word cloud. Why do hiring managers don't want to hire?
That's right. Candidates kept coming in. So he wanted to take the whole team. Did he do it, Corey? Did he take the entire team? Obviously, you don't tell us who it was, but wow, that's crazy. So he probably took the candidates too. He left with all the candidates and all the team. See ya. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. All right, I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am because I'm just cracking up over here. Okay, so I have one other one. I got a couple more, but I'm not sure how much time we have left. Um, in regards to efficiency or effectiveness, depending on how you want to define it. In other words, getting more done with less, right? In your experience, what do you feel has remained the same throughout your entire career, but that has never evolved? So what
LinkedIn,
area of recruiting has just not evolved through your entire career? That you said LinkedIn?
LinkedIn and the fax machine. Those two things have not evolved since I've been a recruiter.
But I was going to say that you still use those. So yeah, so let's kick the fax machine out of here because I don't think I can still find mine. Recruitment tales from yeah. What do you still do that still works that has never evolved throughout your career with regard to efficient recruiting? Or I'm looking for kind of not really the secret sauce, but there's those little things that some of us do really well and we don't really think about it because we've just always done them. Like I have a colleague who's pretty manual about his processes, but he's just doggedly determined to always keep track of the steps of everyone. So he has a double spreadsheet. No matter what's in the ATS or the CRM, he's always copying it to a spreadsheet. And even though I've told him you don't need to do that, he still does it anyway because it's always worked for him. And after about a year and a half, we actually needed to use it because there was one discrepancy in the ATS and he was able to come up with the original data because he had made a copy of it. So there's these things that we just always do, right? So something that you've done that doesn't change. Direct calling. Okay, I like that. The phone, right? Relationships, personalization. Ooh, I like this one. Prepping both the interviewer and the interview. That's a good one. How many of us, I wonder, actually prep the candidate but not the hiring manager, or vice versa, right? We're really good at prepping the hiring manager, but we forget about the candidate. Prepping them both is definitely that's old school. That I don't think that's ever going to change. Templates, okay. So relationships, templates, email. Okay, all right, I get that. But yeah, when I started recruiting, email wasn't that big, believe it or not. That's how long I've been doing it. Oh, my first recruiting job, we had Lotus Notes, and it only synchronized once a day. So it connected to the server and grabbed email once a day. We got faxes throughout the day, but we only got email once a day. And it only sent email once a day. So you could write all the emails you want, but it only sent them once a day because it had to dial up to the mothership through a dial-up modem. So yeah, when I started recruiting, email wasn't really even that big a thing. So, but definitely calling. Yep. Awesome. Okay, now here's a doozy, and I want to close out with this one. Do we still have a few more minutes? We do? Okay. Should sourcing and recruiting have the same SLA? Should sourcing and recruiting have the same SLA? And support your answer. Yes, why, no, why? Or I should say not. No. Yes, why, no, why not? Paper applications. Yeah, we had that too. Paper applications and folders. Actually, I had an applicant flow log on a piece of paper where I had to hand write the candidate and the disposition. Yep. Believe it or not. Most folks these days don't even know what an applicant flow log is because the ATS does it all automatically. But we had to manually keep that. Dang, we have a no, a resounding no, Brian, to the question, should sourcing and recruiting have the same SLA? And it looks like there is not a soul alive today that thinks that they should. Oh, well, that Amy Beth makes a very good point. If you don't know the difference between a sourcer and a recruiter, then right, then it doesn't matter what the SLA is. Yeah, that pretty much puts an end to that question. Thanks, Amy Beth. Okay, assuming that you have a defined role for a recruiter and a defined role for a sourcer, revising my question here, should they share an SLA? Yeah. That's all. That's good. All right. Should we do one more, or are we good?
Let's do one more question, and then let's bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Marvin Booker, who is ready poolside for us to make this happen.
Okay. All right. So here it is. Here's my last question. Of all the technology that we've seen evolving, AI, ChatGPT, chatbots, email automation, CRM systems, social networking, all of it, of all the technology that we have seen evolved, try to name one technology that has hurt you in recruiting more than it helped. One technology that did the opposite of what it was supposed to do. Obviously, something that you applied or put in practice, but as a piece of technology that you put in practice or you applied and you were like, oh, that was a bad idea. We need to roll that back because it hurt more than it helped. LinkedIn. Oh, man. I'm hoping that we get something other than LinkedIn.
So one of the things that I put into play, Workday. One of the things that I tried to do is I tried to navigate recruiting on Twitter using a tweet deck, and that just absorbed way too much time, and I did not have the right methodology going forward on that, and I looked like an idiot. Yeah, I looked like an idiot.
Wow, this one-way interviews. This is coming up a couple of times here. I'm interested in finding out. So as opposed to like there's the synchronous. There's the synchronous and then there's the asynchronous. You're not talking about asynchronous two-way interviewing. You're talking about the one where like they send you a link and you record yourself on the phone and you can, that one. Okay. Yeah. So that's been actually, there's a lot of chatter about that being an unfair practice. Because from what I've read, now I'm not an expert in this field, but I'm very curious about this. If anybody does have solid information about it, because essentially the data suggests that it's used only as a way to eliminate candidates, that it's not used as a way to select them. But basically these one-way interviews are nothing more than mass rejection techniques that don't add any value to the process. I personally have never worked in an organization that had that. I've had the asynchronous interviewing, but that's different. That's kind of like where you take an online test, coder test, and you can see that what they're doing and everything. But yeah, not neurodiversity friendly. That's definitely for sure. But what they've actually said is aside from it not being diversity friendly, it actually is never used for selection. It's only used as a way to reject people. So if you even do the interview, you're just putting yourself at risk of being selected. That's what I've heard. I wonder if that's true or not.
I guess that we will have to have another conversation about that.
Ghosting, yeah.
Well, maybe that replaces our dinner time conversation, Shally, where we define what sourcing is specifically. So everybody, give it up for Shally.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for letting me interview you, our special guest at HRTX today.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of special guests, we have another camp